Dear students, viewers and the subscribers, welcome to the IAS Mentor. This would be our lecture number 54 in the series Indian Polity. Now, few lectures before we have started the topic Union Executive, and we have come a long way. Almost 50 lectures has been covered. We have covered the first part of the Indian Polity. So now we are entering into the next important part, that is the Union Executives. And in the Union Executive, we are discussing about the President, and gradually, lecture by lecture, we will try to cover everything in the Union Executives as well. So if you see the previous lectures, we have covered the basic provisions regarding the President. Especially, we have seen as to what is the constitutional position of the President, and then we have understood the qualifications, the conditions of the President office. We have understood about the concept of office of profit. Then in the previous lecture, we also understood about the concept of the electoral college. So these are all a few important things that we have covered. So now in this lecture, again I am going to discuss about a very important topic, that is the election of the President. The procedure as to how the election of the President actually happens in our country, and what the constitution says with regard to the election of the President, and that is going to be the agenda of this particular lecture. Now, before I start the today's lecture, I would like to inform the students. Today I am recording this particular lecture in a different setup, not in my usual studio setup. So in case if there is any deviation from the standards that we used to maintain, so please bear with us. And it is going to continue for a few more lectures because of my personal reasons. I am out of station, but still I don't want any interruption in the continuation of this particular series. So I have made some temporary arrangements to shoot this particular lecture. All right. So with that, we'll move to the topic that we want to discuss today, which is the election of the President, or in other words, how the President is elected in our country and what the constitution says with regard to that. That's basically what you are going to understand. So if you look into the constitution makes it very clear. The election of the President is based on the principle of proportional representation by means of single transferable vote, and the voting is by what is called as secret ballot. So the important keywords that we'll have to keep in your mind is proportional representation by means of single transferable vote, and the voting is by what is called as secret ballot. Now, once we understand these three keywords as to what is proportional representation, what is single transferable voting system, and what is secret ballot, our understanding of the election of the President would be clear. And in the process, we shall also understand certain other things. What are the various formula that is used to calculate the value of vote of the people who are part of the electoral college. And that's the reason I already explained as to what is an electoral college. So just to refresh what you have learned. So electoral college is something, a group of people who are eligible to vote in certain elections. If you take the elections to the Lok Sabha and the election to the legislative assemblies, every adult individual will be an elector. But whereas in case of election of President, not everybody is eligible to vote. You and me as an ordinary citizen may not be eligible to vote, as long as we are not part of the electoral college. So we already seen as to who is part of the electoral college. So just to refresh what you already learned, every elected member of parliament, that is both Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha, is part of electoral college. And then apart from the elected members of the legislative assemblies of all the states, they are part of electoral college. And then the elected members of the legislative assembly of Union Territory of Delhi and Puducherry, they are part of electoral college. So apart from that, there is no other people who are part of the electoral college. So once you understand electoral college, they are eligible to vote. But however, as a general principle, you have to understand the value of vote of every member who are part of the electoral college is not the same. If you see the election to the Lok Sabha and the election to the legislative assembly, I am taking that as an example because it is quite familiar to all of us. The principle that is followed is one man, one vote, and one vote, one value. That means everybody who is voting in the election, the value of their vote is the same. But whereas in case of India, when it comes to the election of the President, we don't follow the principle of what is called as one man, one vote and one vote, one value. That is not the case. Although we follow the principle of one man, one vote, but it is not one vote, one value, because the value of vote of the people who are part of the electoral college can vary. So that's basically what you have to understand. But we will discuss all those things as we will proceed. So the first thing that you have to understand in understanding the election of the president is that proportional representation, single transfer vote, and the voting is by secret ballot. So I'll just quickly explain all those things. But before even we proceed with that, we should also understand as to who are eligible to take part in the election. So basically, people who are part of the electoral college, they are able to take part in the elections. And then what is their value? Is their value going to be same? Whoever is part of the electoral college, no, the value may not be same. The value is in fact different for different electors who are part of the electoral college. So we'll try to understand that as well. And for what reason the value is different, we'll also try to understand. And then at the end of this particular lecture, I'll draw some inferences from whatever we are going to discuss today, and those inferences are going to be really very, very important. Alright, so with that, we'll just proceed further. We'll try to understand first what is the concept of proportional representation, single transferable voting system, and the concept of what is called as secret ballot. So first what I'll do is, I'll try to explain the concept of what is called as secret ballot. Then I'll take up the other areas. Now what do you understand by secret ballot system? Now if you see the concept of secret ballot. Now secret ballot is a system which is followed same in case of what is called as election to the Lok Sabha and to the legislative assemblies. That's basically what is called as secret ballot. Now if you see the election to the Lok Sabha and the election to the legislative assemblies, so there also what is followed is what is called as a secret of the concept of secret ballot. Now what do you understand by secret ballot? Some of you might have an experience if you voted in the elections. If you go to vote in the elections, the Lok Sabha elections or the legislative assembly elections, you go to the polling booth, and in the polling booth nobody will be aware of to whom you are exercising your vote, or in other words, to whom you have cast the vote, which candidate is the one whom you have preferred, and to whom you have exercised, in whose favor you have exercised your voting. That's basically what is called a secret ballot. That means the voting happens in a secret cabin. Nobody else will know about that. And that's basically what is called as a secret ballot system. So when it comes to the election of the president, so when the members are part of the electoral college, then they vote in the elections. That also happens in what is called as secrecy. So that is basically what is called as secret ballot system. So where normally it happens? Normally the election to the president is conducted by the Election Commission of India. So this is also very important. So who conducts the election to the president of India is the Election Commission. So normally the Election Commission conducts the election in the Parliament House and in the various state legislatures. Because you know that the members or part of the electoral college includes the members of Parliament as well as the members of the state legislature. So normally the members of the Parliament will cast their vote in the Parliament, wherever the facility that is arranged in the Parliament, and the members of various state legislature who are part of the electoral college, for them they can cast their vote where in the respective state legislature. But the entire election process is coordinated by the Election Commission of India. So this is how the election happens. So we have understood the concept of secret ballot. So why I am stressing upon this particular point is secret ballot is very, very important. That means the members of the electoral college to whom or which candidate they have exercised their vote will not be known to anybody else apart from the candidate who is exercising the vote. Or in other words, you should also keep this in your mind. When it comes to the election of the president, the anti-defection law does not apply. So what is this anti-defection law is a very big concept. I'm going to explain that in a separate lecture. Complete idea, complete concepts related to the anti-defection law, the constitutional provisions related to anti-defection law. Right now you don't have to worry about it, but just keep this in your mind. Whether the anti-defection law will apply in case of presidential election, it does not apply. That means if any party is giving any direction to any of the candidates, that is be it MP or an MLA, to vote to a particular candidate in the presidential election, and if the candidate or if the members of the party who is an MP or an MLA, if he votes contrary to the party direction, is that MP or an MLA liable to be disqualified under the anti-defection law? No, he is not liable to be disqualified under the anti-defection law for the purpose of voting in the presidential election, contrary to the party direction, because the simple reason is the election happens in what is called a secret ballot. When I say secret ballot, nobody will be able to know to whom a particular candidate has voted. So, to that extent, just keep this in your mind. The anti-defection law does not apply when it comes to what is called as the election to the President of India. So, that's the first thing that you have to remember. Now, the second thing is the concept of proportional representation. So, yes, secret ballot is done. So, now I wanted to explain the concept of what is called as proportional representation. And then I will go on to what is called a single transferable voting system. So, what is this proportional representation? So, proportional representation is a concept that when the Constituent Assembly was deciding the provision for the election of the president, they brought in this idea of what is called as proportional representation. So, proportional representation means that the Constituent Assembly members wanted that whoever is elected as the President of India, he should represent the entire nation. So, because of this particular reason, they have given representation from both the union legislature as well and from various state legislature as well. That means we have elected members of parliament as well, we have elected members of various state legislature as well. So that when all these people exercise a vote, so they elect a person as the president who represents the entire nation and who is considered to be above party politics, and that's why we have the president to be the union executive. Now the concept of proportional representation is, we have members from various state legislature. So we have seen who is part of the electoral college, who is eligible to vote. All the members of the state legislature, or to be very specific, the elected members of the state legislative assembly are part of the electoral college. To be very specific, the elected members of the state legislative assembly. So right now in the state legislative assembly, we have got only the elected members. So they are all part of the electoral college. Now the question is, we have various state legislative assemblies. Say for example, we have a state legislative assembly in Tamil Nadu, we have a state legislative assembly in Punjab, we have one in Sikkim, we have one in Rajasthan, we have one in the other states like Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, whatever it is. Now the question is whether the value of each and every MLA belonging to different state legislative assembly, whether the value of vote of every MLA is going to be the same. The answer is no. The value of vote of MLAs in different state is going to be different. Although the value of vote of MLA from one particular state is the same. Say for example, the value of vote of MLAs from the state of Tamil Nadu is going to be the same. But the value of vote of MLAs from the state of Tamil Nadu may not be same as that of value of vote of an MLA from the state of Kerala. The value of vote of an MLA from the state of Kerala may not be same as that the value of vote of an MLA from the state of Punjab. The value of vote of an MLA from the state of Punjab may not be same as that the value of vote of an MLA from Maharashtra. So in this way, most likely the value of vote of an MLA from different state is going to be different, and that's basically what is called as a system of proportional representation, or in other words, the value of vote of an MLA from each and every state is different, and how it is calculated is based on the population of that particular state. So what is the basis which is taken? It is based on the population. So where a population of a particular state is more, I am just repeating this particular statement, many times has been asked in the examination. If the population of a particular state is more, then the value of vote of an MLA from that particular state is more. If the population of a particular state is less, then the value of vote of an MLA from that particular state is less. So for example, there are certain northeastern states where the value of vote of an MLA is less than 10. It is in single digit figure. But if you take the value of vote of an MLA from the state of Uttar Pradesh, which is having the highest population in India today, the value of vote of an MLA from the state of Uttar Pradesh is 208. The value of vote of all the MLAs from the state of Uttar Pradesh is 208. As far as I remember, the number of MLAs in the state of Uttar Pradesh in the legislative assembly is 403. That is what I remember. So value of vote of all the MLAs from the state of Uttar Pradesh is 403. So value of vote of all the MLAs from the state of Uttar Pradesh is 208. There are 403 MLAs. Now similarly, the value of vote of MLAs from the state of Tamil Nadu might be little different. The value of vote of MLAs from the state of Rajasthan might be different. The value of vote of MLAs from Meghalaya might be little different. But however, all depends upon the population. So that's why we call it to be what is called as proportional representation. The value of the vote is proportion to the population. And since it is proportion to the population, accordingly the weightage of the MLAs from every state might vary, or their say in electing the President of India might vary, and that is proportion to the population of that particular state, and that's basically what is called as proportionate representation. So if the value of vote of an MLA is going to be the same, then there's no concept of proportional representation. But proportional representation comes in because of the fact the Constituent Assembly decided the value of vote of every MLA is going to be different, and it depends upon the population of that particular state. So the first thing that you have to remember with regard to the concept of proportional representation is the value of vote of the MLAs in the electoral college is not going to be the same. The value of vote of MLAs is going to vary, and how it is going to vary? It is going to vary from state to state on the basis of the population of that particular state. And this is on the one hand, and further the Constituent Assembly decided that giving effect to the federal provisions of the Constitution. We know that India is a federal constitution. That means there is division of powers between the center and the state. So the Constituent Assembly wanted that this proportional representation should also apply in relation to the federal provisions of our constitution. That means they also wanted to give proportionate say to the union on the one hand and to the various states on the other hand. So the union is represented by the members of the parliament, elected members of the parliament, and the states are represented by the various state legislative assemblies. So because of this particular reason, the proportionate representation, they also wanted the union to have one proportionate say and all the states to have one proportionate say. So based on which the president shall be elected. So this concept of proportional representation, two things we will have to understand. One is the value of vote of an MLAs is going to be different in different states, and that is decided based on the population. And then in deciding the President of India, there is a proportionate say to the union legislature, that is the elected members of parliament, and collectively all the MLAs from the various state legislative assembly as well. So that's basically what is called as proportionate representation. But to understand this concept of proportionate representation further, you should also understand how the value of vote is decided, how the value of vote of an MLA is decided, how the value of vote of an MP is decided. So what is given in the constitution, that is what we are going to discuss further. And then I'll discuss about the concept of what is called a single transferable voting system. So once we understand all these things, the election of president is almost done. So please follow with me. You will be in a position to understand all these things very clearly. All right. So with that, we'll try to understand as to how the value of vote is being decided, because we understand that the electoral college consists of different members. Okay. So the electoral college consists of MPs, MLAs from different states, and of course the elected MLAs from the union territory of Delhi and Puducherry as well. So we'll try to understand all those things. So first we'll try to understand as to what is the value of vote of an MLA. I've already said as to how the value of vote of an MLA is decided. The value of vote of an MLA is decided on the basis of the population of that particular state. So what is the formula that is given in the constitution to decide the value of vote of an MLA? So try to remember this particular formula. So value of vote of a MLA in any state for that particular matter. So this is the formula that is given in the constitution is equal to population of that particular state. So you take population of that particular state. So whatever may be the population of the state. So population of the state divided by the elected MLAs, elected MLA from that particular state multiplied by 1 by 1000. So this is the formula that is given in the constitution to calculate as to what is the value of vote of an MLA. So let me just repeat it again. So how do you decide the value of vote of an MLA? So suppose let us assume value of vote of an MLA from the state of Uttar Pradesh. For the state of Uttar Pradesh, I know that there are 403 elected MLAs in the state legislative assembly. So elected MLAs in the bottom divided by population of that particular state multiplied by 1 by 1000 will give you the value of vote of all the MLAs from the state of Uttar Pradesh, for which we need to know what is the population of that particular state. So how do we know the population of that particular state? And for that purpose, we have got what is called a census. So census is conducted by the government of India every 10 years. So we will put this based on the census data, we are going to put the population. But now the question is, which census data we have to take? Do we have to take the latest census, or is there any specific census year that is mentioned in the constitution? So this is also very important that you have an idea about this. If you look into the original constitution says that whenever the election of the president happens, the latest census is to be taken into account. But however, this provision was changed by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act in 1976. The 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976 says that the census that is to be taken into account to calculate the value of vote of an MLA, and which census is to be taken into account is the 1971 census, that is census that was carried out in the year 1971. And this 1971 census is to be carried out till the year 2000. That means till the year 2000, whenever the presidential election happens, what census is to be taken into account? It is a 1971 census. Then subsequently what has happened? In the year 2001, the 84th Constitutional Amendment Act was carried out. So when it was carried out? In the year 2001. In 2001, when by the 84th Constitutional Amendment Act, they still extended the provision of 1971 census till the year 2026. It is not even till the year 2026. Try to understand. Today, the Constitution reads, by the 84th Constitutional Amendment Act 2001, for the purpose of the population of any state, which census is to be taken into account is the 1971 census. Until what point of time the 1971 census is to be taken into account? Till the first census is carried out after the year 2026. That means, after the year 2026, whenever the first census will be carried out, suppose if after 2026, in the year 2031, the first census will be carried out. So, till 2031, for the purpose of presidential election, which census is to be taken into account? It is only the 1971 census. Suppose after 2026, in 2027 itself, the next census is happening. So, then the 2027 census, but it is unlikely to happen because every 10 years census is likely to happen. So, today, for the purpose of calculating the value of vote of an MLA, which census is likely to be taken into account? 1971 census. So, until what point of time the 1971 census is to be taken into account? Till the year first census after the year 2026. So, just try to remember this. This is very, very important. So, based on this particular formula, the value of vote of an MLA is decided. So, now the interesting part that you have to observe here is, the value of vote of an MLA is dependent upon two factors, and one important factor is the population of that particular state. That means wherever the population is higher, that is because the population is in the numerator, wherever the population is higher, the value of vote of an MLA is going to be higher. So, the value of vote of an MLA is directly proportionate to the population of that particular state, and that is why we say that it is based on the principle of what is called as proportionate representation. The value of vote of an MLA is proportionately varying based on the population of that particular state. So, thereby a state which is having more population would have a greater say. A state which is having lesser population will have a lesser say based on this particular formula, because this is how the value of vote of an MLA is decided. And accordingly, a state which is having more population will have a greater say in deciding the president, because to elect the president should achieve certain electoral quota, and in achieving that electoral quota, people, when they are having more votes, we can help the president in achieving the electoral quota. So, thereby they will have what is called as a greater say in electing the president of India. We will discuss about what is that electoral quota as we proceed. So, as of now, this is what you will have to understand. And one more fact you can remember is, for any state MLA, which state MLA is having the highest vote is the MLAs from the state of Uttar Pradesh. And that's quite natural, because it is the Uttar Pradesh which has got the highest number of MLAs, and because highest population in that particular state, and of course highest MLAs also, but they have the highest population, and that is the reason the value of vote of MLAs from the state of Uttar Pradesh is the highest. So, in this way, we can calculate the value of vote of MLA of each and every state. For all the 28 states, this is going to apply. And what is the census that is to be taken into account is the 1971 census. And the elected number of MLAs might vary from state to state. The population might vary from state to state. So, both the variables might vary from state to state, and that's why I said that the value of vote of an MLA might actually vary from state to state. But however, the value is proportionate to the population of that particular state. More is the population, higher is the value. Less is the population, less is the value. And that's why basically the principle of what is called as proportionate representation. So now, if you look into the electoral college not only consists of what is called as the MLAs, the electoral college also consists of the MPs. So let us also try to understand the value of vote of the MPs as well. So both the MLAs and the MPs are part of the electoral college. So both can vote in the elections. So now we have seen as to how the value of vote of an MLA can be calculated. So now let us try to understand as to how the value of an MP is calculated. So how to calculate the value of an MP? So value of vote of MP. Vote of MP. So this is the formula that is given in the constitution. So to calculate the value of vote of an MP, so you will have to calculate by this particular formula value of vote of all the MLAs. So this is very important, all the MLAs. When I say value of vote of all the MLAs, it includes value of vote of all the MLAs from all the 28 states and 2 union territories, that is the union territory of Delhi and Puducherry. So let me also put it here. When I put MLAs, so it includes the value of vote of all the 28 states plus 2 union territories. So who are all part of the electoral college. That is the elected MLAs from the legislative assembly of all the 28 states and 2 union territories. If you sum up all their values, say for example, I told that the value of vote of an MLA from the state of Uttar Pradesh is 208. So value of vote of MLA from the state of Uttar Pradesh is 208 multiplied by total number of MLAs in the state of Uttar Pradesh, 403. So this is the total number of MLAs, this is the value of each and every MLA. So 208 multiplied by 403 will give the value of vote of all the MLAs from the state of Uttar Pradesh alone. So in this way, you add up all the MLAs value votes from all the 28 states and the 2 union territories. When you sum up all those things, you get a value that will come in the numerator. That divided by the elected MPs. Elected MPs in the parliament. And who are the elected MPs in the parliament? It only consists of the elected members of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. In the Lok Sabha, we have got 543 elected MPs, small correction, 543 elected MPs in Lok Sabha plus 233 elected MPs in the Rajya Sabha. If you sum up all those things, you have 776. So 776 is constant, which is there in the denominator. And then value of vote of all the MLAs, elected MLAs from all the states, you sum up all those things and put it in the numerator. So approximately this value is equal to 708. So you don't have to remember this, but approximately this is the value. It is 708. That means the value of vote of MPs in the parliament is 708. And one important fact that you have to notice, that the value of vote of an MP is far higher than the value of vote of the MLA from any state. Because which state MLA is having the highest value? It is the state of Uttar Pradesh. Even in the state of Uttar Pradesh, the value of vote of an MLA is just 208, whereas the value of vote of an MP is 708. So the value of vote of an MP is far higher than the value of vote of an MLA from any state. So this is a general inference that probably you can remember. So that should be quite clear to all of you. Is it clear to all of you? Okay, so that's very, very important. Now, one more interesting thing that you have to understand with regard to the proportionate representation is, so if you add up the value of vote of all the MLAs from all the 28 states and 2 union territories, if you add together, that is roughly equal to the value of vote of all the MPs. That is 776 multiplied by 708, which will roughly come to a particular value. Thus, value is almost similar. I am not saying it is equal, but it is almost similar to that of, if you add up the values of all the MLAs, elected MLAs from all the 28 state legislature and 2 union territories, that value is quite same. So in a way, you are giving proportionate representation to the union as a whole and the states as a whole. And then within the states also, you are giving proportionate representation based on the principle of what is called as population. So that is basically the principle of what is called as proportionate representation. So now we have crossed 2 important concepts. One is we are trying to understand what is called as the principle of secret ballot. The second, we are trying to understand the concept of what is called as proportionate representation. And in the process, we also understood as to how to calculate the value of vote of an MP and the value of vote of an MLA. So both the things are understood. So now we will proceed further. We will try to understand as to what is the concept of what is the concept of single transferable vote. So without that, our understanding may not be quite clear. All right. So we'll try to understand the next concept as to what is single transferable voting system. And to understand the concept of single transferable voting system, we'll have to understand first basically what is called as the first past the post system. And we should also understand as to the concept of what is called as an electoral quota when it comes to the election of the president. Unless and until we understand both the things, we are not in a position to understand the concept of single transferable voting system. So first let me explain the concept of first past the post system. I am quite sure most of you might be aware of the concept of first past the post system. The first past the post system is not followed in the election of the president. The first past the post system is followed when it comes to election to the state legislature, when it comes to election to the Lok Sabha. In all these cases, we follow what is called as the first past the post system. When you say the first past the post system, a first past the post system is something wherein that anyone who gets the highest number of vote among all the candidates is declared to be the winner. Say for example, in an election if there are 100 voters and 2 candidates are contesting or 3 candidates are contesting. So out of 100 voters, 51 would be the majority. So it is not required a particular candidate among A, B, C who is contesting the election that one has to get 51 votes. It is not required. The only requirement in the first past the post system is the winner should get more number of votes than the other candidates. Say for example, if A gets 40 votes and if B gets 39 votes, 40 plus 39 is 79 votes and C gets, let us assume, 21 votes, then automatically A would be declared to be the winner because A has got the more number of votes than the other candidates. But none of the candidates A, B, C has got more than 50 votes. That is not required in the first past the post system. It's a very simple way of deciding the winner. But whereas when it comes to the president, the constitution says that the winner in the election to the president of India is not based on the first past the post system. The winner in case of the presidential election should get what is called as an electoral quota. That means the winner in the presidential election, that is who is declared to be the president elect in our country, should get a specific electoral quota. Unless and until they achieve an electoral quota, unless and I am repeating it, unless and until somebody achieves electoral quota, they are not declared to be the winner of the elections. So this achieving the electoral quota is very, very important. So first they have to achieve the electoral quota, then only they can be declared to be the winner of the election. So for that, first we will have to understand as to what is the electoral quota. So what the constitution is saying, the electoral quota in case of the election of the president. In case of election of the president, the electoral quota is something where the president shall get more than 50% of the valid votes. So that means the constitution is saying the electoral quota is, it shall be more than 50% of the valid votes. To put it in a single line, electoral quota is more than 50% of the value of valid votes. More than 50% of the value of valid votes, and that's basically what is called as an electoral quota. Or in other words, we can understand how to calculate this. You can put this particular formula: total value of valid votes divided by 1 plus 1, because we have only one president, one person is to be elected as a president, so we divide that plus 1 plus 1 to whatever value that gets. So this is how we calculate the electoral quota. So unless and until a person achieves this particular value of votes, he will not be declared to be the winner of the election. And in order to achieve this, the single transferable voting system is used. Let me explain it a little further with some examples. So first you will have to understand that a person to be declared winner in the presidential election, which is conducted by the Election Commission of India, they should secure what is called as an electoral quota. And how to calculate the electoral quota? So you will have to put the total value of valid votes. When I say total value of valid votes, all the value of the votes which is cast by each and every member in the electoral college. In the electoral college, we have MLAs, we have MPs, so everybody will cast their vote, and every vote will have a value. Say for example, every vote in case of an MP will have value of 708. Every vote in case of an MLA will have a value depending upon which state they come from. Say for example, if they are from a state of Uttar Pradesh, the value will be 208. So every state will MPs will have a value. Every MP will have a value for their votes, and then the key word here is total value of the valid votes. Suppose while casting the vote, if a vote become an invalid vote, because sometimes if they don't cast their vote properly, then it becomes an invalid vote. An invalid vote has to be excluded. That value will not be added. So the value of vote of all the valid votes will be taken into account. So the value of vote of all the valid votes will be taken into account. And then once you take into account the value of votes of all the valid votes, that divided by 1 plus 1, and then you add 1 to it. So then you get what is called as an electoral quota. For example, suppose let us assume the value of vote of, just an example that I am saying. Suppose let us assume the value of vote of all the valid votes in case of presidential election, let us assume it is 100, or say let us assume it is 1000, the value of all the valid votes. That is not the reality, it is just a hypothetical example. Suppose if the value of vote of all the valid votes, that is the value of all the members of the electoral college, is summing up to 1000, then what would be the electoral quota? The electoral quota would be 501 in this particular case. That means any person to be declared elected as the president, he should have secured these much number of values who has favored him in the presidential election. So if he has secured 501 value, because every vote has got a value, we are not just taking the number of votes, but we are calculating the value of those votes. That is what is very important. And if the value of those votes is 501, then basically the electoral quota is achieved, then the person is declared to be the winner. So this is exactly opposite to the concept of first past the post system. So let me explain it in a further way. And for which the single transferable voting system is used. So what exactly is the single transferable voting system? And how the single transfer voting system is helping somebody to achieve what is called as electoral quota. So for which, let me take a ballot paper. So this is how the ballot paper of the president is here. So suppose let us assume this is the ballot paper, and this ballot paper usually looks like this. So this ballot paper will be like this. So on the one hand, what is called as, you have candidates. You have what is called as preference. So just listen to me very carefully. Suppose let us assume that there are 4 candidates contesting the election, A, B, C and D. Let us assume 4 candidates are contesting election, A, B, C and D. These are the 4 candidates who are contesting the election. And then here you have got what is called as preferences. So these are the 4 preferences that you got. First preference, second preference, third preference, fourth preference. So these are the 4 preferences you have got. Now whenever any candidate in the electoral college, so whenever any person who is part of the electoral college who is eligible to vote in the presidential election, this is how the ballot paper will be given to them. So normally what happens in the normal elections, when we go to vote in the election to the Lok Sabha and the Legislative Assembly elections, today we have got an EVM, so we press the button only against a candidate to whom we are supposed to vote, or to whom we wanted to vote, or in whose favor we wanted to vote. But earlier there was a physical paper, a ballot paper was given to us. In the ballot paper, we used to mark to which candidate we wanted to vote. And there, I am talking about the election to the Lok Sabha and Legislative Assembly elections. So there, if you give a preferences to more than one candidate, that vote becomes what is called as an invalid vote. You can vote only to one candidate. But whereas when it comes to the presidential election, that is a key feature of the single transferable voting system. Every candidate who is contesting the election can be given preferences by the people who are part of the electoral college. Say for example, let us assume that I am an MP who is part of the electoral college and I am participating in the presidential election. So a ballot paper is given to me. So a similar ballot paper is given to me provided that there are 4 candidates A, B, C and D are contesting in the presidential election. I am a part of the electoral college because I am an MP. So now I am going to exercise my vote. How I can vote in the election? I want A to become the president of India. So I will give my first preference to A. I can either stop with this or I can give the preferences to the other candidates also. Suppose for me, my first preference is A. But in case if A is not becoming the president, I want B to become the president because B is my second preference. And in case if both A and B is not becoming the president, my third preference is C. And in case if all the three people are not becoming the president, because we do not know how others are voting in the election. So my last preference is what is called as D. So this is the way that I can vote in the election. So this is absolutely not allowed in case of the other elections, but in the presidential election where there is a principle of single transferable voting system, we can allow the voting system allows not only to give the first preference, but preferences may be given to the other candidates contesting the election as well. Suppose let us take a hypothetical example that such a ballot paper is given to all the members of the electoral college, and every member of the electoral college has cast their vote. So everybody has to give their first preference. Whether they give the other preferences or not, it is up to them. That is not mandatory for them to give the other preferences, but first preference is must. And if the first preference is not given, then that particular vote would be declared to be invalid vote. So first preference is mandatory, and if you want to give that the members of the electoral college wanted to give other preferences, they can give the other preferences also. So now let us assume after every person who is part of the electoral college, they have exercised their voting in this particular way. Suppose let us assume. And after they have exercised, then the election commission will count the votings. And when they count the voting, suppose let us assume A has got 40% first preference. I am talking about the first preference. Because when the election commission is counting the vote, it is going to count only the first preference, not the other preferences. So A has got 40% first preference. Let us assume B has got 30% first preference. C has got 20% first preference, and D has got what is called as 10% first preference. Now tell me who would be declared to be the winner of the election? Nobody would be declared to be the winner of the election because nobody has got what is called as an electoral quota, and somebody to get electoral quota, they have to get more than 50% of the value of the valid votes. And now nobody has got what is called as electoral quota, so nobody can be declared winner of the election. Neither A, B, C or D can be declared elected as the President of India because nobody has got electoral quota. Now the Election Commission of India has two options. Either in this election itself somebody has to be declared to be the winner, or they can go for a re-election. So nobody can be declared to be the winner because the constitution does not allow for it. If they declare A as the president based on 40% value of the votes, then that is unconstitutional because A is not satisfying electoral quota. Neither A nor B nor C nor D is satisfying the electoral quota. So that option has to be ruled out. The second option is because nobody is having an electoral quota, the election commission can go for a re-election. But in the re-election also there is a possibility nobody is getting the electoral quota. So in order to avoid this, there is a system of what is called a single transferable voting system. So now we are trying to understand as to what is a single transferable voting system. Listen to me very carefully. So what is a single transferable voting system is saying? Now whenever the election happens like this, so the person who has got the least number of first preference, who has got the least number of first preference after the first round of voting. So here D has got the least number of first preference. So D is ruled out of the election because there is no possibility that D will be able to win the election because only 10% of the people or only 10% of the value votes where D has got the first preference. So D is ruled out of the election. So once D is ruled out of the election, whoever has given the first preference to D, they would also given second preference to any of the three candidates. We are not sure to whom they have given the second preferences. They might have given second preference to A, B or C. So to whomever the second preference has been given. So since A is ruled out of the election, the respective second preference is transferred as the first preference of the other candidates. That means since D is ruled out of the race, now this 10% will be shared among A, B and C depending upon the second preference vote that they have got. Okay. So now let us assume because B is ruled out of the race, now let us assume now A has become 42%, let us assume B has become 35% and C has become 23%. Suppose let us assume this is the way the vote is modified now. I am just repeating it again because D is ruled out of the race. Now all the second preferences that was given to A, B or C would be respectively transferred as their first preference. And the resulting percentage of votes or the value of the votes is 42, 35 and 23. Now who would be declared to be the winner of the election? Now also nobody will be declared to be the winner of the election because nobody is getting the electoral quota. because electoral quota should be more than 50% value of the votes. So now what will happen is D would be ruled out of the race because D has got the least number of first preference, and C will be ruled out of the race because C has got the least number of first preference. Now what will happen is, now whoever has given the first preference to C, they would have given second preference to either A or B. So those second preference would be transferred as the first preference of A and B once C is ruled out of the election. So this vote will be correspondingly shifted to what is called as both A and B. Suppose let us assume that out of this 23, 10% vote comes to A, that would make the value of vote to 52%, and 13% to B, that would make the value of vote of B to be 48%. Now tell me who is declared to be the winner of the election. Now A would declare to be the winner of the election because A has achieved what is called as electoral quota. So it is more than 50% of the value of the valid votes, and therefore A would be declared to be the winner of the election. And this is exactly what is called a single transferable voting system. So what is single transfer voting system? Single transfer voting system means that whenever a candidate who is part of the electoral college, when it comes to presidential election, is giving or exercising his vote, he will not only give the first preference, he is also allowed to give the other preferences. And once the voting is done, and after the election commission calculates the first preference, if nobody is getting the electoral quota after the first round of counting, then the person who has got the least number of first preferences would be ruled out of the election, and the respective second preferences for the other candidates would be transferred as the first preference. So this happens every time. So every time there is a single transfer of first preference, the respective second preference as their first preference. So that is why it is called as single transferable voting system. And in this way, somebody will achieve the electoral quota, and only when somebody achieves the electoral quota, they would be declared to be the winner of the election. So this is basically what is called a single transferable voting system. So without understanding this, we cannot understand the election of the president. So try to understand this. If you see the election of the president, the principle is based on what? The principle is based on proportionate representation, that is, the value of vote depends upon the population, and there is a proportionate representation between union as a whole and the various states as a whole, giving respect to the federal provisions of our constitution. Secret ballot means the voting happens in the secret, and therefore the anti-defection law does not apply. And then we have understood the single transfer voting system, which helps in achieving an electoral quota. Not necessarily that this transfer is likely to happen. So this is likely to happen only after the first round of voting, if none of the candidates are getting an electoral quota. If somebody is getting an electoral quota, then there is no need to transfer the votes. If somebody is not getting an electoral quota, then there is a need to transfer the votes. So this is basically what is called a single transfer voting. And in calculating the value of vote of the MLAs, and it is very important that population is an important criteria, and which population is to be taken into account? It is a 1971 census. Until which point of time the 1971 census is likely to be taken into account? The 1971 census is to be taken into account till the first census after the year 2026. So these are all very, very important things that you may have to keep in your mind. So with that, we are almost coming to the end of the concept of understanding the election of the president. So before I complete the lecture, so let us now try to draw certain inferences. In fact, in number of years, at least in the last 10 years, 4 to 5 times, the questions have come just from the inferences, some observations from whatever we learned. So what are the observations that you should have? The value of vote of an MP is the same. That means there is only one formula to calculate the value of vote of a MP. Whether he is an MP from Lok Sabha or whether he is an MP from Rajya Sabha, it does not matter. The value of vote of all the MPs are same. So that is very, very important thing that you have to remember. Now the second thing is, the value of vote of an MP is always greater than the value of vote of a MLA. An MLA can be from any state, whether he is from Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Karnataka, Kerala. If you take one single MLA and one single MP, the value of vote of an MP is always going to be greater than value of vote of an MLA from any state. Because the highest value for an MLA is from the state of Uttar Pradesh, and which is 208. But the value of vote of an MP is 708. So the value of vote of an MP is always greater than the value of vote of one single MLA. and the value of vote of an MLA is different in different states. This is very likely that the value of vote of an MLA from different state is different, because there are two variables. One is population is one variable, and then you have in the denominator the elected MLAs in each and every state. So these two variables are going to be different for different states. So usually it's very likely that the value of vote of an MLA from different state is going to be different. And then the cumulative value of vote of an MPs from Lok Sabha is greater than the cumulative value of MPs from the Rajya Sabha, which means while the value of MP is the same, whether he is from Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, value of vote of every single MP is going to be same. But if you take overall Lok Sabha, because Lok Sabha has got more number of MPs, that is 543 MPs, whereas elected MPs in case of Rajya Sabha is only 233. So if you cumulatively add up the value of all the MPs from Lok Sabha, it will be much higher than the value of cumulative value of all the MPs from Rajya Sabha. So try to remember these observations, very important. Question does come from this particular area. So with that, we are almost coming to the end of this particular lecture. So let me just quickly take a moment to summarize all those things. If you see the election of the president, it is based on the principle of proportionate representation by means of single transfer vote, and the system is by secret ballot. And you should have a clear understanding of what is this proportionate representation. You should have a clear understanding of what is the value of vote of an MLA, how it is calculated, how the value of vote of an MP is calculated, which census is to be taken into account while calculating the value of an MLA. So all these things should be quite clear in your mind. And then you should understand the concept of secret ballot. Then you should also have a clear understanding of what is this principle of single transferable voting system. What is the electoral quota when it comes to the election of the president, and what are the various observations we have seen. If these things are clear, I am quite sure whatever question that may come in the prelims examination from this particular topic, you are already in a position to answer those questions. So with that, let us move and let us try to understand. Let us try to solve one practice question that I usually give. So look into this particular question. And I am quite sure that if you have listened to the lecture carefully, you are very much in a position to solve this question. Consider the following statements regarding the presidential election in India. 1. The value of vote of MLAs of all the states are same. Is the value of vote of MLAs of all the states are same? Is it right or wrong? Decide that. The value of vote of MPs from different state is different. Is it true? If an MP is from Gujarat, if an MP is from Rajasthan, will their value be different or is it same? The president is elected on the basis of first past the post system. So how many of the statements given above are correct with regard to the election of president in our country? So if you know the answer, you can put it in the comment box, and I am quite sure that if you watch the lecture carefully, it's very easy for you to solve this particular question. So with that, we are coming to the end of this particular lecture, and if you have any queries related to this particular lecture or anything related to the Indian polity, whatever you are seeing, you can reach out to me either through my Instagram account or through my Telegram channel. And to have maximum benefit out of this particular series, I would suggest all the students to watch all the lectures in the series, because the way the lecture has been designed, it is designed in a particular way, and so that it will give maximum benefit to the students. So if you have any of your friends or family members who are preparing for UPSC IAS examination or other competitive examination, you can refer them this particular channel and this particular series, and it is going to be immensely beneficial to the students preparing for the examination. Thank you very much. All the best.